Episode 2, Chains of the Lion. Did you know what happens when an unbreakable spirit is shackled but not silenced? The sun had barely risen over the ochre hills of southern Africa when the iron-tipped Roman boots thundered into the quiet Zulu village like a storm sent from another world. The clash of bronze shields, the hiss of Latin tongues, and the blinding shimmer of foreign steel ripped through the morning like a curse. Screams rang out. Homes were engulfed in flames, and amid the chaos, he stood, bare-chested, barefoot, and proud. Not a prince, but a warrior. Not a legend, but a living heartbeat of his people. He was not named here, for he bore many names. Mfazwe, the fighter. Indlovu, the elephant. Sipho saZulu, the gift of the Zulu, bound in chains thicker than a lion's spine. He was dragged like spoils of war across deserts, across ships, across time. The Romans did not see a man, they saw a spectacle, something they could dress in exotic cloth and parade in the blood-soaked sands of their empire's heart, the Colosseum. Rome struck the senses like a hallucination. Towering stone gods, gold-clad senators walking over beggars. The scent of wine, piss, and roasted lamb hung in the air like a twisted perfume. But what chilled his soul was the sound that came from deep within the belly of that monstrous arena. The crowd. It was not joy, it was not horror, it was hunger. A hunger for blood, for fear, for entertainment bought with death. He was thrown into a dark cell beneath the arena where sunlight didn't dare to enter. Here, the walls wept moisture. Rats chewed at old bones, and every breath carried the scent of men who had hoped, fought, and died. There, next to him, was a man from Thrace with broken knuckles and a torn ear. Another from Nubia, whose silence was louder than thunder. They were warriors from every broken tribe Rome had crushed, but none like him. None Zulu. Days passed, maybe weeks. Food was a handful of dry grains. Water tasted like rust. But every night he whispered to himself the names of his ancestors. He beat his fists against the stone to keep the rhythm of his spirit alive. They had taken his spear, his homeland, his language, but not his purpose. Then it came. The gates opened, and the sky, for the first time in moons, bathed his face in fire and glory. Colosseum, a nightmare built from marble and screams. 50,000 eyes watching, senators drinking wine as they bet on who would die first. Drums thundered, trumpets howled, then silence. He stepped out, barefoot, into the arena sand, each step a thunderclap from the soul of Africa. The crowd stared. He was taller than most, shoulders like a buffalo, eyes like the dead moon. He wore nothing but scars and a lion's tooth hanging from a beaded string around his neck. That was all he had left of home. That, in his fury, a roaming announcer shouted his name, Romley, and the crowd laughed, but the laugh was cut short, because the gates on the other side opened, and two men charged, veterans of the arena, wrapped in steel and arrogance. One wielded a gladius, the other a net and trident. They had killed before, too many times. But the Zulu warrior did not wait. Like lightning dancing through a storm, he darted forward, dodging the net with a roll so clean it shocked even the line-keepers watching. He grabbed the trident midair and spun with such precision it cracked the bone in the other man's jaw like dry firewood. The crowd gasped. Blood sprayed. And before the first man could regain his footing, the Zulu had already disarmed him, flipped him, and had his knee on his throat. But he did not kill. He stood, raised the trident, and dropped it. Silence. Utter silence. That single act of mercy in the house of murder was louder than any war cry. Rome didn't know how to react. The emperor narrowed his eyes. A few booed, others stood in awe, because in that moment the Zulu warrior had done the impossible. He fought not just for his life, but for meaning. He turned a blood sport into a statement. Not all men become monsters in chains. Some become legends. Tay, we've returned him to his cell, unfed, unsure, but something changed. Other gladiators began to sit with him, learning his songs. He taught them rhythm with bones against stone. He shared stories, not with words, but with gestures, beats, and eyes. He turned warriors into brothers. The underground began to breathe with new air. He was no longer just fighting to survive. He was sowing rebellion, the rebellion of spirit. The message to the viewer: sometimes in life, you re-ripped from everything you know and thrown into a world that sees you only as a tool, a pawn, a shadow. But what if I told you that's the very moment the world begins to watch? It's not where you come from. It's what you do when the chains tighten. Will you let the world define you, or will you rewrite the world with your footsteps? Because the Zulu warrior didn't win just with fists. He won with character, okay? And in the arena of life, that's the only weapon that never dulls. Subscribe for episode 3, The Fire in the Sand, when the Zulu warrior must face a lion. Not with a sword, but with his will alone.